I didn't grow up as an elite runner. I didn't grow up running at all or doing triathlon. My friends I trained with were really elite athletes. And so their bar was way up here. And that became my bar, right? So I never thought like, man, I can't do that. That's what we're doing. Just takes the work. You just gotta put in that work, you know? He explained like my carb to insulin ratio. We're starting out and started with the long acting insulin and then, the fast acting. And I kind of was like, hey man, we need to time out here. I don't like needles. I am not a needles guy at all. And he kind of chuckled and he's like, you are now. And it's amazing. Like you can overcome whatever, right? When you're faced with it, it's like, this is life or death for us.
Today on Out of Range, I'm talking to an athlete and community builder who has transformed his diagnosis into a strong mission. Casey Boren is an American ultra runner, multi-Ironman finisher, and co-founder of the Diabetes Sports Project. Diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 34, he rebuilt his athletic life through discipline and resilience. He completed numerous endurance events, including 14 Ironman races and a race across America with a group of type 1s, and helped create a global platform that inspires people with diabetes to stay active. So I'm really looking forward to talking to him about what it takes to be an elite athlete with type 1 diabetes. Casey, welcome. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, this is great. So, but really want to thank you for doing this and putting some light on what it's like to be an athlete with diabetes. It's an experience.
Yeah, true. How are you today, by the way?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's a little earlier here for us over on this side of the pond.
Yeah.
It's a little warmer too. It sounds like you got some snow.
Yeah, yeah. So, Casey, maybe let's start out from the beginning. How did you develop a passion for running? Were you already a runner as a child?
No, I wasn't. I actually, ironically, my parents owned a running store, and there was no way I was going to go out running unless I was chasing a ball. So I pretty much grew up playing soccer, was pretty competitive at that, and then transferred into like downhill skiing and was really passionate about that. But running was not in my books. It's just, my hat goes off to the kids. There's a lot more kids running cross country now and track and all this. So, you know, that's to me, it's hard to like, it was hard back then to run without like chasing something or like more of like, I felt like it was more of a sport playing soccer than it was just running out for a distance.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did you buy your first pair of running shoes then?
So my wife's family came over to Seattle and they were doing a sprint triathlon. And my athletic ability back then, I was probably maybe 30 back then. So I wasn't doing a lot. I was playing a little indoor soccer, but basically my sports at that point was kind of like midlife. I was focusing on career. So my sports kind of was watching ESPN highlights on TV. So they came over and they were going to do this sprint triathlon and they were like, hey, you should do it. I'm like, man, I can't. There's no way, I haven't been training. And then a couple beers later that night, they talked me into it. My wife went out and bought me a swimsuit. I had this cruiser bike and back then they had these cross trainer light shoes. So I went down and lined up with those guys, and just fell in love with it. I was like, oh man, I miss this so much. And from there it just took off.
Yeah, because you've come a long way since then. How'd you get into let's say the more serious work like Ironman and ultra running?
Yeah, so it's like anything, right? When you start something, you start off small and then you kind of get the bug for it. If you have a passion for something, you want to be better at it and you want to kind of push yourself, right? So after that, I did a couple other triathlons and was just really getting involved with it. This was actually before my diagnosis too, which was, great. So I ended up getting in with a community and a group of people, and they were Ironman athletes, and they're like, "Oh, you should sign up for the Ironman." And one thing led to another, and I got into Ironman racing. And after my first Ironman, I mean, once again, I just loved it. I love the journey. I love that whole training with your friends. I love the atmosphere. I love the lifestyle of it back then. It was really important to me to have that community.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I never got into triathlon with the idea that I want to do Ironman. That was, I didn't even consider that. It was just like, let's try a first small triathlon, a sprint triathlon, and let's see if we can make that. And that would be great if I could do that. But then, yeah, you get the hang of it. You get used to the training. You really like it. And the people around you start saying, or your coach starts saying, oh, maybe you should try a half Ironman. And then the ball starts rolling, and before you know it, you're doing the real Ironman. So
Yeah.
you mentioned it, but you're doing all that now with type 1 diabetes. You were diagnosed a bit later in life, right? At the age of 34, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, back in 2005, it was after my first Ironman. Basically what happened is I did the Ironman. It was great. While I was training for the Ironman, I had some really hard times. Like I did a training camp and I bonked. I didn't know a lot about endurance athleticism then, and I bonked basically. But I bonked so bad, I didn't know how to get back to my hotel, right? And that should have been a red flag. And I read and I was like, okay, from here on out, I'll never bonk again. This is not good. So I, nutrition wise, I was taking goos all the time, and then ended up training, got through the Ironman, which was great. Life-changing experience, for me and my wife. And then we went down to Brazil for a family vacation with our family, and came back, and I was getting ready to train. My coach basically said, "Hey, you need to take some time off. I think you're overtrained." I'm 6'4". I was down to 150 pounds. So I was pretty skinny, but you're training a lot. I thought, hey, this is all part of the training. I came back, and I'm a pretty solid runner. And when I started training again, I couldn't even get close to the times I was running before I went down to Brazil. And my friend's wife, she's a nurse practitioner, and she said, you need to go see the doctor. Went to the doctor. He's checked my blood, and he's like, oh, you're diabetic. And I was like, what? It's because nobody in my family has type 1 diabetes. Nobody, like in our history, we don't have it that I can find. And I was like, all right, sounds good. Give me a pill. I'll be on my way. And he kind of looked at me. He's like, yeah, no, it's not that kind. My blood sugars were, at the time when he checked it, I know they're different between what we say and you guys say, but they were like 450. My A1C was like 21. Sent me home, gave me shots, started on this process, and it was a process. I mean, back then I don't think there was a lot of people doing the sports, and I just wouldn't let it change me. I was actually happy to know what was going on with my life and what was going on with my health. Like at least I had an answer, and I could attack this answer and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to hear that initially you confused the symptoms of type 1 diabetes with the symptoms of overtraining, basically, because that's something I hear with a lot of athletes. They say that, okay, you're losing weight, but you're doing a lot of training, so it may be that, and okay, maybe you're just a bit tired and you don't feel so well. So, and then when did you actually find out? Did you go to the hospital, or how did that go? The diagnosis.
So I went down to the hospital, and when they basically just said, hey, you have type 1. Usually they put you in the hospital, because I mean, my blood sugars were high, and they were high for a while, but the doctor was like, well, you're not really showing any symptoms. He explained like my carb to insulin ratio were starting out, and started with the long acting insulin, and then, the fast acting. And I kind of was like, hey man, we need to time out here. I don't like needles. I'm not a needles guy at all. And he kind of chuckled and he's like, you are now. And it's amazing. Like you can overcome whatever, right? When you're faced with it, it's like, this is life or death for us. Um, so he just basically gave it to me. I went home. He scheduled me an appointment at a diabetes education center. And that was it. I went to the diabetes education center, and unfortunately at that time in our area, I'm not in a huge city. Um, it wasn't a lot, like they were missing some information, you know. They didn't understand the sports and diabetes. I wasn't going to change my life and not do any kind of sports. That just wasn't a narrative for me. Like that was not the option. So it was kind of rough with those guys. And then I had to just come up with my own plan and go from there.
Yeah, so because a diagnosis is quite a dramatic event, I would say. It can be quite traumatic. Um, how did you think about sports back then? Did you fear that maybe, your triathlon career or whatever you wanted to do for sports, it was over at that point? Or how did you look
No,
at that back then?
never crossed my mind. Never crossed my mind. It basically I just knew I had a lot more steps I had to go through. I had to rethink everything that I had goals for. And my goals ended up becoming how am I going to be able to do this? Right. Um, this was before CGMs, right? Well, actually the first Dexcom was coming out then. So I mean I had to rig my bike for triathlon with like a tester on it and test when I'm riding. Just there was just no way I was gonna not do sports, right? Um, Once again, I think exercise and sports is such a good thing for anybody in the world, not just type ones, but anybody, right? And you just having a healthy lifestyle is just great, And so I just looked at it and said, okay, this is what we're gonna do. There's gonna be a lot of ups and downs, and I accepted that. And just realized that, there was a lot of things learning about the type 1 diabetes that I thought was really interesting. One of them was checking your blood, right? That was a big one back then. You have the tester and you check your blood, number comes up. I ended up like literally hiding my numbers from my wife because she didn't understand, right? I was like try to tell her this is just a number, honey, and we were going to change, this is going to tell me what I need to do. And she would be like, well, why is it so high or why is it so low? And I'm like, we're figuring it out, and it's just going to be one of those things. I saw a saying the other day, your number's not a report card. It's just information, and it's a valuable information for us. Right. So yeah, that was like my main thing. Like, let's figure out these numbers. Let's figure out how to fuel, right? Because Ironman, triathlon, endurance running, playing soccer, it's all about fueling, not going low. Cycling, same thing, I'm sure,
Yeah, so you were figuring it out at that point yourself, but you were quite relaxed about it. If I listen to you, I think you were like, okay, let's see how it goes, trial and error, and we'll get there. You were positive from the start.
Yeah, you have to be, right? I mean, you can't. There was like a day, I think we were talking about, I don't know if we've talked about the diagnosis yet or if you want to. But there were some days that were like, I got diagnosed, and after taking the shots, I was high for so long, I went to work. It was like 3 days later, and I'm sitting at my computer, and my vision goes out. Like I have like everything's blurry. I'm sitting there and I'm like, what's going on? And I yell out to my coworkers, hey man, you guys need to take me to the hospital. I can't see. And I'm thinking, I'm going blind, right? Because this is like what I've read online about symptoms and stuff. So, there were scary moments, and I went blind. Basically, the doctors said, oh, you had too much fluid in your eyes, and now that your blood sugar is coming back into range, everything's evening out, right? And it's just going to take them a while to catch up. So I sat in my house literally for 3 days, couldn't do anything because I couldn't see, listened to the radio. And finally, I called a friend's mom that she was a type 1, and she gave me this brilliant information of go down to the drugstore, get readers, and put them on until my vision came back, right? So as being relaxed about it, that was that was scary. I haven't had a lot of super scary moments with type 1, but that was an eye opener. I've had a couple other eye openers where it's scary, but I've always went into things having a plan. You always got to have a plan, right? You got to have a backup plan. If this doesn't work, what are we going to do? How are you going to go? It's almost like, with racing, you have your A goal, you have a B goal, you have a C goal, right? It's the same thing with diabetes. I feel like, hey, this is our plan. And if this plan's not working right, we need to adjust it. So that's kind of how I went with the sports side of it as well.
Yeah, that's nice. So you clearly saw some similarities between life as a type 1 and life as an athlete. That's interesting to hear.
Yeah.
So when you were diagnosed, you'd only done one Ironman, right? But
Yes.
You've completed 13 more and many long distance events since. How did your athletic journey evolve after your diagnosis?
So basically when I got diagnosed, I started off like, how am I going to do this? Right. Obviously, all new challenges. So for me, I had to come up with a plan. I started, basically went down to a treadmill, started running, had a bunch of food on the treadmill because I was worried about going low, right? Because that was my big fear, going low over going high at the time. Figured everything out on the treadmill. I documented everything, like at this mile, what my blood sugar was, what I ate before I worked out, when I took my last insulin, how much was my long-acting insulin at the time. So once I got confident in a controlled environment like a treadmill, I took it outside, right? I went to a track, brought all that food, right? Because once again, I'm still worried. Would run a mile on the track, write it down. I'm not joking. Like I had this book that was huge, right? So once I kind of had a grasp on what was going on and a kind of a schedule, like this is what I'm going to eat before, this is when I'm going to take my insulin before. I was like, okay, now we can go out and start riding. We can go run and kind of just progress from there. And luckily, I was a pretty good athlete, and I had definitely some moments where it was learning moments, right? Like my first triathlon with type 1 was a half Ironman in Oregon. And I went down there and I had my plan, had everything on my bike. I gave my friend's wife my tester. And I was like, I'm not going to need it. I have this on my bike. I won't need this. I got this thing dialed in. Well, my tester fell out of my bento box on my bike, that little box on the thing.
Yeah.
So I went the whole ride without testing, basically. And I came into T2 and I was looking for my friend's wife, and she wasn't around. And I was like, this is horrible. What am I going to do? So I kept running. I'm a pretty guy that I just can't quit races, right? So I finished the race and I learned right then, this is my disease. Like I can't rely on other people with this disease, and this is mine. And I need to make sure no matter what, I can find out at any time during the race or any time during the day of daily life what my blood sugar is or what I need to do, because you can rely on people and they're there to support you 100%. But in the end, it's your disease, right? So you need to take it on. And so that was kind of like my first journey into it. I kept racing and I got pretty fast. I ran a sub-3 marathon. I've raced for Team USA and long course World Championships. I ended up doing a relay with a team called Team Type 1 at the time. And we did really well in this relay, and they invited me to be on the team. And that's how I ran across America, which in that team, became Team Novo Nordisk. So I raced for them for, I don't know, I think it was like 5 years, maybe. Yeah, it was great. We raced all around the world. Um, it was, it was a great platform for us. And from there, then I qualified for the World Championships, and that's where we launched Diabetes Sports Project. We
Wow.
kind of, yeah, it was great. We got a sponsor. We took that money, we put it in Diabetes Sports Project. Had a bunch of incredible, that year we had two of us racing the Ironman World Championships, type ones, which was incredible.
Yeah, we will go into the diabetes sports project a little bit later still, but
Hmm?
when you look back at how you managed your diabetes in these first years after your diagnosis, what are the biggest differences if you look at your current management then?
Okay, so I think the biggest change for me was going from shots to a pump. And then the technology of the pumps nowadays are incredible, right? I mean, it's not a cure, but I feel like for me, I think everybody has their own specialty on how they manage stuff, right? What works for them. And there's no right way, there's no wrong way. But for me, being on a pump has been really a game changer. I've done multiple different ways of racing Ironmans. I've done it on shots, done it on pumps. I did a race where I actually took long-acting insulin and then used my pump for short-acting insulin, right, during the race. Well, unfortunately, that race, it was the first time I've ever had like stomach issues during the race, and I started throwing up during probably the beginning of the marathon. And in my head, I just kept thinking, you have long acting insulin. And no matter what you do, it's going to keep driving your blood sugar down. So you're going to have to eat food. Versus if I was on a pump, just the pump, I could have unplugged, right? And there was just a lot of advantages for me on the pump. Like I'd wear two infusion sets, right? So if like one infusion set, like if I felt like my blood sugar wasn't working correctly, I could switch over to the other infusion set, right? And say, okay, maybe it got kinked. Um, or once again, I'm going low or I don't need the nutrition. I could unplug and let the insulin on board kind of just work its way through. And then I could go
Yeah.
without insulin for a while, right? Versus that long acting insulin, you're on that ride no matter what. So that's where I'm at now. Like I am definitely, for me, I'm a pump guy, and it just works for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the same experience, and there's also a practical benefit. Like it's very hard to inject insulin on a bike while riding and not bend your needle. It's
Yeah.
not easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that. I've been there, I've done that, but then you bend your needle and you're like, oh, damn it. Where do I have another pen? Do I have another pen? Yeah, I have another pen. Luckily, I'll try again. And this time I can't do it wrong because if it bends again, I'm out of insulin. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of the things. Yeah. So, you use a pump and the CGM now, right? To manage your
Yes,
diabetes? Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I wish everybody could have a CGM out of anything. I wish everybody in this world, if you have type 1 diabetes, could have a CGM because I think a CGM is a game changer. Having that number and knowing where your number's going is so important to management, you know?
Yeah, I think that the CGM for me, it was even crucial to move to longer distances, triathlons, because, you know, you can kind of wing it if it's a shorter triathlon and you can be like, okay, it'll be fine. And you can try to measure, but you can't be competitive that way because you have to measure in transition. You have to check your sugar and you will lose a
Yeah.
minute to do that. And every
Yep.
time you do that, yeah, you lose more minutes and you have to check quite often. Whereas if you have a CGM and you can just see it on your watch, it's so much easier. I mean, you can check your sugar every 5 minutes, every 2 minutes, you can check it and you can just look at your watch and there it is. So you can keep track.
You know what's going on. right? Like if you're in a longer race or if even, I mean, short race, like you said, you're going to be able to get through it. But a longer race, you don't want to spend all this time super high elevated because what that's going to do to your performance, you're going to probably start cramping.
Definitely.
Um, so it's important, we do, like we were talking about earlier, the CGM is just, it is it, it's so important.
Yeah. So, are there moments in your endurance career, like challenges or breakthroughs, setbacks, that still stay with you today?
Yeah, I mean, definitely back in like '09 when I think I raced 2 Ironmans that year, I was taking huge chunks off my time, right? And there was a race in Canada, it was like Ironman Canada that year. And it was just, everything was coming together. I mean, it was perfect. I was gonna just crush it. And then on the marathon, I started cramping again, right? Um, Probably due to a little bit of high blood sugar. I'm a super heavy sweater. So like we just did a race in Colorado. It was a 6-day stage race of running. And every day I would weigh myself. The first day I lost 12 pounds, right? Every day after that, I would lose 6 pounds of water weight. So sweating for me and cramping is like a major challenge. And I figured it out a little bit. But those are major breakthroughs for me. Nutrition was a huge one. When I started figuring out, okay, this is how I'm going to do my nutrition, and it worked, that was super important. Now, you still got to modify it because unfortunately, diabetes is this like moving target and you got to change as you go. But those were huge. Another, I think, breakthrough was realizing, even though like Ironman's an individual sport, the community you surround yourself for training is so important, right? Like, I didn't grow up as an elite runner. I didn't grow up running at all or doing triathlon. My friends I trained with were really elite athletes. And so their bar was way up here. And that became my bar, right? So I never thought like, man, I can't do that. That's what we're doing. And I think that's like getting that mindset and knowing that was a huge, huge like breakthrough. I mean, I talk to friends all the time and they're like, I can't do that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, you can. If I can do it, you can do it. It just takes the work. You just gotta put in that work. So
Yeah.
that was huge.
So, would you say that diabetes helped you to be more resilient, to increase your resilience?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, being a type 1 athlete, y- unfortunately, you're gonna have to be tougher than everybody else. Um,
We also we also get
that's
that.
you know actually it's funny. I follow like my friends. We kind of like follow each other. That's my friend's blood sugar. She's gonna
Oh,
crack up.
okay.
Yeah, that's not
I
that's
thought
not mine.
I thought
That's
it was you going hypo. I thought
no, no.
no, no.
That's my friend. She's
It's gr-
going
That's
hypo.
great.
So yeah.
It's
Um
amazing.
yeah. It's fun. I mean, it works like if it kind of works one of those things. Like I said, I always preach about, we need a community, this and that. Like I share
Yeah.
my blood sugars with her. She shares them with me. It kind of started when I crewed for her in a race, like she shared them. And then she was like, how come you can always see mine, but I don't get to see yours? And I was like, okay, I'll show you my blood sugars. So, but yeah, sorry about
Sharing your blood sugar.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to what you said about community and training with a community because when in my early days when I started training, I had the opportunity and the honor actually to train with a group of type ones. We had a little group at the university hospital where type ones would train together with nurses and doctors who were also cycling. And so we would train for like a big event at the end of the year, and we would all train towards that and train together. So every week we would go for a long ride together. And I learned so much doing that, just training with other type ones to have that sense of community. It also, it made you go there, every week. It made you
That's
get there, go there and go for that long ride every
Yep.
time. that you really need. And that
Yeah.
pushed you further on in your athletic journey as well. So that's so nice to train with other people. And especially if they are also type 1. That's such a great feeling.
Yeah. That bond is unbreakable, you know?
Yeah. So many people say that exercise has strong mental benefits beyond the physical. How does that work for you? What are the mental benefits of exercise for you?
So for me, it's basically a huge stress relief. Like, so right now I'm just running. I'm planning to do 100K coming up and trail running mainly. And when I go out and I run, I feel better. I get to think about things that maybe I wouldn't think about. Like if I'm having a situation at work, I can go out and run and think about it. I think a lot about Diabetes Sports Project when I'm running. I think about listening. Sometimes I just listen to music and try not to think about it, you know. Lately, I've been working on my cadence in running. So I have to pick certain songs and I get to just spend that time focusing on my beat of my run, right? Versus everything else in the world kind of goes away. And if it's 30 minutes, if it's 2 hours, if it's 3 hours, it's incredible. I have certain friends I run with sometimes, and we just talk about life, right? I mean, life's harder as you get older, I feel like, and all life's always hard, kind of, but as you get older, you have different problems, you have different situations. So my friends and I will talk about it, you know, when we're out running, and it's a huge stress relief. I actually get super cranky when I can't exercise. Um, I don't feel good mentally when I look in the mirror. I don't feel like I'm treating my body right. Um, my friends, one of them, I would call her my T1D daughter, that her thing went off. Her, and then I have a T1D sister, which we all in this group together. They got so mad at me when I coming off of an injury, and I was so cranky, and they basically told me, you know, hey man, you need to like toughen up and like realize you need to get better. And I was like, okay, this is great, you know, but yeah, so mentally, if you can't exercise and you can't get out there and you can't get those endorphins, even if it's walking your dog, I don't know how you do it. Like, I just don't know how you get through life that way. You know, I mean, that's my vice. That's my vice. That's what I go to. What about you?
Yeah, the same thing for me. When I go running, I can just I can get out of everything else. You know, can get out of work. I can get away from everyone. There's no noise. I can just enjoy nature. I can be there. I can think about things that I'm worried about or that I have to solve, like something I'm looking for a solution. And when you're training and you're doing long training, especially if you're doing long bike rides or long runs, you have a lot of time to think. And that's something you need in life sometimes, you know, to
Yeah,
think about something a little bit longer and to consider it from different angles. And that really helps, I think, to regain focus and also stay energized in the rest of your life.
definitely. 100%.
Do you think that being an elite athlete helps you to deal with the challenges of diabetes better?
Um, I don't know if necessarily being an elite athlete. I think being an athlete in general helps because it helps us kind of figure out how to overcome stuff, right? When you're an athlete, when you're performing whatever your sport is, I think you get challenged, right? Or you come up against something and you figure out how to take it on. It kind of builds that will in you to overcome something, right? Like I'm not going to let this thing beat me. I'm not going to um back down from it for whatever reason. Um and maybe that's part of personality, you know, but I think with diabetes for me, I really had to dial in my nutrition, recovery. It taught me to learn also listen to my body, right? Because with diabetes, there's a lot of other things that can come into play, like highs and lows, um, all sorts of stuff like that, right? So all the extra challenges that come along with diabetes does, in a way, make you a better athlete. But it's also like the hardest part, I think, about being a type 1 athlete is people don't see what we go through, right? They don't see, like, if you're standing up on the podium, they don't realize maybe during that race, you bonked 5 times during that race, or maybe you were high. Maybe you didn't get any sleep that week going up to that race. There's just so many different variables that come with type 1 that people don't see. So you are, in my opinion, if you're a type 1 athlete, you're tougher than the other people out there. You can go through more and push through more than anybody else, because you'll think in your head, they're not dealing with this. I am, and I can get through this, and I can still beat you, you know?
Yeah, and I think that is one of the, I would dare to say, positive sides of living with type 1 diabetes. It forces you into a certain lifestyle, I would say, that is also beneficial for being an athlete. You have to be aware of what you eat. You have to really know your body very well, and you always have to do it. It's 24/7. It's not something you can switch off. So in a way, that is also something that athletes need to do. They need to take care of their nutrition. They need to know their body very well. So in that way, they are a little bit similar, I would say.
Yes. The only difference is they can eat whatever they want when they're racing, and we have to plan it out very strategically, you know?
Yeah. Yes, but and you took this very scientific approach almost to, to find out the system of diabetes. You said, like, a controlled environment. I will just try to see what works for me and how much I have to eat to do like a half an hour of running, for instance. And that is something that other athletes probably won't have to do. But it does give you a lot of knowledge about your own body and a lot of insight into how your body processes carbohydrates, for instance,
Yep.
and how you need to fuel yourself. It's in a way, it's a skill.
Definitely. 100%.
So you are not only taking on incredible sports challenges with diabetes, you're also supporting the diabetes community through advocacy and education. You co-founded an organization called the Diabetes Sports Project. You mentioned it before. What is the Diabetes Sports Project, and how did the idea for it first come to life?
So it came to life back in 2015, when a bunch of us at the time we were racing for Team Novo Nordisk, and we wanted just to dive more into the community and kind of more educational side of it, right? And then we also wanted to bring in, at the time when we launched it, so we launched it at the Ironman World Championships. And I was thinking, oh, this is just going to be basically triathletes and runners. Within like a month, it exploded. We had over 150 athletes from all over the world. We had professional rugby players. We had climbers, jiu-jitsu people, kids. And then, so what we would do is we wanted to highlight these guys. So if you wrote into us and you wanted to be a part of Diabetes Sports Project, we would bring you on. We would send you a shirt, right, to help, and we'd promote their story online. And that was great. I mean, it blew up. We started doing running events where we'd get the community together. We'd go and all do a run. We'd all wear a shirt. And just watching the people the day before like connect with each other was amazing. So that's kind of how it started. And then it started to get more, once, that went on for a while. And basically we were doing talks. We did a ton of talks across the US. And we worked with the Peak program with JDRF to help promote the diabetes and exercise, which was incredible. And then we had some more elite athletes start reaching out to us. Sophie Schump, she is one of 4 type 1s that has ran the Olympic trials. She reached out in 2015 at the time, and she was basically a runner. And this is kind of like what I see, like this is how Diabetes Sports Project has really like changed people. Not only to help them get exercising, but Sophie was like, she was a good athlete. She was a college goalie. She did high school sports. She was younger, and she was going to run her first marathon. She was like, "Hey, do you think I could do this marathon?" I was like, "Yeah, that's what we're here. We're going to help you." She does this marathon. She crushes it. Then she wanted to qualify for Boston. We helped her do that. She crushed it. Then, so she's growing all these years, right? She's growing. She's an incredibly intelligent person. And when it comes to sports, she's super intelligent. She ends up qualifying for the Olympic trials, runs it. We bring her on to Diabetes Sports Project as a full-time person. We all volunteer, right? There's no paychecks here for Diabetes Sports Project. So she is our athletic development talent kind of person. So she started her own coaching business called Embrace the Grind. And she has helped so many type 1s. We kind of just push all the coaching to her now because she's good at it. I mean, she's coaching me now because it's like, it's just easier. And we are moving on from basically, we had this big platform of everybody. And unfortunately, it's just unsustainable with just volunteers. So we are getting ready to launch the first ever all pro type 1 running team. And it's pretty amazing right now. The runners we have are winning marathons. I mean, they're not just running them, they're winning them overall. They're winning ultras. They're like Sophie just qualified for the UTMB Mont Blanc World Championships, right? So
That's a tough one.
yeah, we're going to be there this year. So we're going to be there helping her. We've come up with this plan where I want type 1 sport supporting type 1s, right? Because it helps the type 1 athlete. So if we go to like an ultra, we have a type 1 crew following their blood sugars, knowing what they're going to need when they come in, get them to the finish line as fast as possible and as safe as possible, right? And that's kind of like right now we got 2 things going on with Diabetes Sports Project. Since we've kind of had to retool it, we have the pro running team coming out. And then we also are working on a diabetes education platform for continuing education for diabetes educators, because the sports side of it is the information is out there, but I don't know if it's in the hands of the providers as much. So we are going to have a platform where we have like currently right now with Diabetes Sports Project, we have these endos, we have diabetes educators, nutritionists, and coaches and elite athletes. So we want them all to work together to help promote a continuing diabetes education program. So we're kind of pushing towards those 2 things right now.
Because something interesting that you say is that, you can work with a coach as a type 1 diabetic, and I also worked with a coach, but they don't have diabetes and they usually don't know much about type 1 diabetes. And that is a disadvantage because some things really require, I would say, knowledge of diabetes to support the athlete in the best possible way. And I like the idea that you say, okay, we actually want type 1s helping type 1s, being there. And maybe can you, is there like a particular story or event that made you think, this is why we do this?
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously when we ran Cross America with all the type 1s, that was huge.
Yeah.
But the most recent one was basically Sophie was racing as a pro at the UTMB Kodiak, which was, I think she was doing a 50K. And I was like, here, let me crew for you. I'll come down. You share your blood sugar with me. we'll come up with, your race strategy. We go down there and we do it. And when she finished, and she was third overall, and as a pro, it was a very interesting scenario. I've never been through the drug testing process. Like, they drug tested her, and, we had to get her for her insulin out and do all these things. But when we finished and we were sitting around having dinner that night, she said, that was a game changer. Having a type 1 there, because you knew everything I needed when I came through. And this isn't anything against non-type 1s, but even if my wife or my parents or my friends crewed for me, they wouldn't know what I go through as a type 1. But if I have a type 1 there, they know that. And that's where it's important. And the bond, I just think there's even more of a special bond. And I know for me, if I have a bunch of type 1s like rooting for me at the time, I don't know, it's just like a little extra push as well, So I think that's where we came up with it. And going forward, if you're gonna race at an elite level, you need those things. I mean, that is definitely you're gonna have to have them, especially for crewing. So
Yeah, and maybe can you tell me a little bit more about that race across America, because
yeah.
it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So basically, this one wasn't technically it wasn't a race, but we had 9 type 1s, and we started in California, and we wanted to end up in New York on World Diabetes Day. So we did it in 14 days. And we basically did it as a relay style. We had 2 different teams. I was on the old man team, and there was a young man team. And we all kind of just, like, as one team was running, they had a van. The other team was sleeping in a motorhome. And it was incredible. I mean, the bonds we created doing that was insane. I wish it would have got more publicity at the time, It's unfortunate because it was an incredible experience. I don't think people realize, like, when you run across America, how hard it is. But to do it in 14 days, I mean, I think we averaged like 7 40-minute miles, or, right under 8-minute miles all the way across America, which was insane, and it was life-changing for me. It was life-changing. All those people that I did it with, we're still friends, till this day. And that was back, I think we did it in 09 or 011 to 2011.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I just did an ultra, my first ultra 50K.
Yeah.
And after that, I had so many blisters. I never had so many blisters. And I also had a rudder stow. So I can't imagine saying, like, okay, 1 or 2 days after, oh, let's do another ultra. I mean, to me, that's like, it's amazing.
It was crazy. We were running about 30 miles a day each. I ended up getting Achilles tendonitis, so I had to run through that. I mean, you couldn't even see my ankle at one point. It was horrible, man. We had a guy twist his ankle. Just crazy stuff was happening. We'd be in these passes with snow. We'd have to, like, run on these, like, find these extra roads in the dirt and run with the van. I ran with these 2 guys from New York, and they were like, dude, can we drive on this dirt? And I'm like, where are you from, man? Yeah, you can drive on dirt.
You're something else, You're something else. So what is your long-term vision for DSP and its role in the diabetes community?
So DSP, my long-term vision is, once we get these platforms going, the last 2 I talked about, the education and the pro team, phase 2 of that would be community run groups, and go on from there. I want to make sure that there's a community out there for type 1s, right? I want to make sure there's a safe place. I would love it to be worldwide, but we need to start off with the US, and we need to start these run groups where it's kind of like meetups, right? And maybe it won't just be run groups. Maybe it'll just be meetups. Like I go and meet with my friends. I have like 4 friends here in Boise, and it's growing as we go out and we meet. We have like maybe we just go out for a beer and we talk diabetes. I think it's important that you can spend that time talking about diabetes, the funny things that happens with diabetes, the bad things. There's, my friend, she was cracking me up. She's like, I wear a pump. And my husband knows when it's going to be a good night because when I come into the bedroom, the pump's on the stand, and I start laughing like, "What are you talking about?" And she's an incredible runner, right? She's one of our diabetes educators, and her knowledge, like, if Diabetes Sports Project can get all this knowledge we have from the sports side of it, the pump side of it, how to do it into everybody's hands, it will change. I mean, I don't want parents to be scared that their kids have type 1 and they can't go do something, because those days are over, and you need to just take certain steps to be able to do it. And luckily, we have the experience with the athletes and the endos and the diabetes educators to help get that information out. And that's kind of where our goal is. Our goal is, in the end, I don't want anybody to be scared to go exercise. I want you to be the best person you can be. I would love for you to be part of Diabetes Sports Project and be known as a type 1, and don't hide it. It's a to me, it's a beautiful thing.
I love that. I mean, it's so important to share knowledge about diabetes. And yeah, if you've all this experience with diabetes in sports, especially, it's great also to inspire and educate the diabetes community to achieve their goals. And so I'm wondering, what would you say to someone newly diagnosed who fears losing their active lifestyle?
I would say definitely, number one, don't worry about it. It's going to be hard. You're going to have some ups and downs. They're not failures. If you go out and you do something that doesn't go out the way you want it to, learn from that, document it. Get in contact with people that have already went through it, because their knowledge can help your journey go a little bit smoother, but never give up. You just can't give up, because if you're willing to put in the work, if you're consistent about what you're doing, the goal's going to come. The goal will come. Dream big, right? You still got to dream big. I mean, you dream big.
Yeah.
There's no ceiling for any of us. We create our own ceiling. So we have to make sure these newly diagnosed people and their families know that and can reach out to somebody, and hopefully we can help them.
Yeah, and especially, if they're already athletes, they already know how to do exercise. They know already everything around sports. They have to figure out diabetes, and they can do like you did, right? Start in a controlled environment, start doing, smaller things, and then build up from there and find their own system. They will have to do it on their own, but they can learn from people who have more experience than them. Like you say, reach out.
Yeah.
Role models are very, very important, I think, in diabetes and sports community.
Definitely. There's definitely a difference. Like this is something that we talk about on Run Across America. There's educated diabetes, right? So when you're an endo, you go through and you get educated about what's in the books. So there's book smart diabetes and there's real world diabetes. And luckily we can merge those together at DSP with our experiences, because unless you have those life experiences, you can't get it across to somebody else, right? So that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, definitely. And what is the biggest misconception you still hear about type 1 diabetes in sport?
Oh man, I hear a lot.
So many.
Yeah. Well, actually, crazy enough, in that race I did in Colorado, the first stage, so this race was basically we run 6 stages, and we did it as a team. So I had to run along the side of my teammate. And it was super high elevation. It was a hot day, and I lost 12 pounds. So I needed an IV. There was no question, right? We went to a hospital to get the IV, and the doctor said to me, "You shouldn't be doing these because you have type 1 diabetes." Like, this day and age. And I'm sitting there, and like we had like 2 teams racing this race, and one of the girls that was not my race partner at the time. So basically we were in there, and the doctor told me, like, you shouldn't do these races. It's not good for you. You're type 1 diabetic. This day and age, that information is, doctors are still saying that. I had some choice words to tell them, and I left. So that's one of them. I think another one is, you know, I think that's the biggest one. Like, you can't do this, and that's not true anymore. It's just not true, you know?
No, I think the same, if you have the right motivation, the right support, and the right technology nowadays, I think as a type 1, there are no obstacles to aiming high and to achieving great things in life and in sport. So I think that's a clear message to give to the diabetes community.
Yes.
So Casey, I must say, I find your story and purpose really admirable and really enjoy talking to you. But to end with something a bit lighter, I'd like to ask you just a few quick fire questions, if that's okay with you.
Man, yeah.
So let's start.
Okay, let's hit it.
What's your favorite hypo snack?
Root beer.
A gel, a bar, or real food during long events?
Gel or chomps?
A heat, cold, or altitude? What do you prefer?
Cold.
What's the longest distance you've ever raced?
100 miles.
Do you have a race or challenge that's still on your bucket list?
Yes. Western States 100, Mount Tremblant 100.
Many.
Yep. Yeah, I have a few. Yep. I'm not done yet. I'm a little older, but I'm not done yet.
Do you have a training session that you really hate but still do anyway?
Yes. Swim running. I hate it. Like, for me, it was basically when I injured my hamstrings, I had to run on a pool, right? But it's really good for you. It's really good for you, and I hate it, but I still do it, you know.
Do you have a pre-race routine or a ritual?
Yep. So I wake up if the race is at 6 a.m., I wake up at 2 a.m. and drink a protein shake. That's my ritual.
Barefoot, no drop, or lots of cushioning for your shoes?
Lots of cushioning.
What's the lowest glucose you've ever had?
Low. So I guess when it comes up low, it's what, 20?
It's
yeah.
It's I think it's under 30. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had
so
that. I've had
very
those in
low.
a race. Yeah. Yep. Not good.
What's one thing about type 1 diabetes that most people don't know?
How hard it is. The lack of sleeping, the lack of how hard it is to work out with not normal blood sugars. Like, people don't know how hard that is, actually. There's no way they'll ever know either, unless you get diabetes, unfortunately.
Have you ever used your diabetes as an excuse to get out of something?
Yeah. I am. I used to have a card that said I had diabetes. So when my wife would want me to do something around the house, I'd be like, "No, I can't do it, Ray. I'm too tired. I have diabetes."
That's a good one. I should try that one. Nice. You did great, Casey.
Yeah,
how did you experience our conversation today?
I thought it was great. I'd love for you to chime in, like, about your experiences. Like, this is what I do and stuff like that every once in a while, because I think that's important, right? I think the thing about diabetes is there's no one right way to do it. And you know?
No, it's true. I'm interviewing a lot of athletes, and every story is different, right? And
Yeah.
everyone has their own system, but you also see many similarities between what they
Yeah.
do, and especially in the mindset.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
for sure.
connects. It connects people. Diabetes connects people. So
Yeah,
if people want to reach out to you on social media, where can they find you?
So they can find us at Diabetes Sports Project on both Instagram and Facebook. For me directly on Instagram, I'm Insulin on the Rocks and Casey Boren on Facebook. But I have both of them. If they hit Diabetes Sports Project on Instagram, I'll see it. I'll see it come through.
Yeah, and I'll also add the website to the show notes so people can have a look.
Yeah.
What challenges are on the calendar still for you in 2026?
So I was going to race a 50K in February, but I had to back out of it because I tore my hamstring. So I'm coming back from that, and I'm going to do a 100K in April, a UTMB race down in California. And then I'm definitely going to do Kodiak in October. It's a 50K, and try to win my age group and get to either UTMB this year or the following year. So I'm kind of rebuilding my running. So I'm like started off with like, I want to do these 50Ks, get good at it this coming up, 100K. And then next year I'm going to go all hundreds, and then maybe a 250.
Wow.
Yeah.
Best of luck with that.
Yeah.
Casey.
Yeah.
Casey, thank you so much for sharing your story. Your determination, your discipline, and the work you've done through the Diabetes Sports Project are, I would say, incredibly inspiring. I think it's wonderful that your support is giving other elite type 1 athletes a chance to pursue their ambitions. And I think it gives a really powerful message to the diabetes community and beyond, that diabetes is not a limiting factor for aiming high and achieving great things in life and in sport. I wish you all the best in your next adventures and with the continued growth of DSP.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Casey, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Out of Range, the podcast that shares real stories from athletes living and thriving with type 1 diabetes. I hope today's conversation inspired you to get active, take control, and find your own balance in sport and in life. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and follow the show, or share it with someone who might benefit from hearing these stories. Every recommendation helps more people with type 1 diabetes discover the power of movement. And in the meanwhile, keep learning, keep moving, and keep your glucose in range.